everybody. Welcome to Primo Perspective. I'm Kristen Borth.
And I'm Lorie Mills. So, Kristen, we have a fantastic opportunity today to discuss one of my favorite topics, and that is networking and how important that is. So I'll just tell a real quick little story. I always have a story. Networking is one of the reasons I have made it to where I am. Networking is one of the reasons I have even met you. Because we met at a conference that we were introduced by Debbie Primo. And I knew Debbie Primo because I had been doing conferences in House of Delegates and was on CCHM with her. And so my networking has actually landed me in my dream job. So what about you? Let's talk about networking today.
Let's talk about networking, because I think that's one of the things we like to push out there, and we say, oh, everybody should network. But how you network is vitally important. And, we have just entered into, in the last couple of months, conference season. And, people talk about conferences, and that's my favorite way to network. I am not a huge social media person.
Right.
I try to be. It's just really hard. But for me, that face-to-face where I get to talk to people, I think that's why you and I, just hit it off. I loved your questions when we were at the advocacy summit together, and then Debbie kept talking about you, and then we got to go to another conference together, and it was just spending time and getting to know somebody. But for me, conferences are the big form of networking that I enjoy. I know not everybody does. What's your favorite?
So conferences as well. I love to do conferences. I do several local state conferences, and I've met a lot of vendors, and I've made some really great friends over the years. Not only HIM professionals, but on the vendor side as well. And it has really helped my career get me to where I'm at. I mean, I've had vendors that sponsor me to go speak for them. I haven't interviewed for a job in 20 years. I've always had people reach out to me, or somebody that I met at a conference or served on the board with, they would reach out and be like, come work for me. It kind of happened with Primo that way. So, conferences. I will say, just to touch though, as a vendor going to conferences during conference season, we're usually pretty tired by the end of conference season because we have done so many conferences, which it's great though. I love it. I think it's a fantastic way to grow your network and, just get yourself to where you want to be in your career.
I agree. I tell students often, or emerging professionals often, that, they really should invest in going in at least, to at least one conference where you're face to face with a bunch of professionals. And as I was, kind of doing research for today, I just kept thinking about, talking to my students. And in the 7 years that I've been teaching, I think I've only had 5, maybe 6 go to conferences, but those that went had such an amazing time. And I think there's so many benefits to going aside from just the fun factor. But there's like other logical benefits. You get to rub shoulders with people. You get to spend a lot of money and enjoy good food and talk to people. But that also comes with its downsides too. Do you remember the first conference you went to?
Yes, it was Mississippi HIM conference, and it was in Jackson, Mississippi at the Marriott downtown. And I can remember being a little intimidated. All these professionals that had been doing this for years, and I was new. How do I have a conversation with them? How do I make that work? And I'm a talker. Everybody knows that I'm a talker. So, once I made up my mind, hey, I need to introduce myself to these people and get to know these people. It's as simple as during lunch, go sit down at a table with people that you don't know and just have a conversation. Most people will talk. So that, yeah, I do remember that
Yeah.
conference. So
Yeah, I remember mine so vividly. It was so stressful. As social as I am, it was so stressful because I
uh,
remember looking around at all of these, you know, as I've coined them, HIM royalty, where you're just looking at them, you're like, everybody knows them and everybody's talking to them and they know so much.
yes,
I'll never be like that. And so intimidated. And I felt myself like actively having to tell myself in my head, okay, just go talk to anybody, go talk to somebody. And
yeah,
that's part of the reason why I think it's hard to get new people to come to conferences in general. And I actually had a student tell me, I think it was a few years ago, she said, well, is there somebody that would be like our buddy when we go there? So, we would get to know people. And I was like, that's a really good idea. And so after
yeah,
that, I started telling all my students, I was like, come, I will be your buddy. I will introduce you to everybody I know. And I've only had 2 take me up on it. And hopefully one this fall take me up on it
mm,
to come to a HEMA. But it is a little intimidating and it
it
is hard
is.
to step out of your comfort zone and try to get to know people, especially people that they're in it. They
Yeah.
already have this knowledge. Like you're not contributing much because you're learning and you're just seeking to learn from them.
Right. Yeah. I did a little research and I know you've done some research on this as well. So I put in, why is it important to network? And it just talks about
Yeah.
growing your band, getting your bandwidth out there, that you have access to professionals that, for one, you can ask advice if you have something
Yeah.
come up that you don't know. You can ask and have a professional, seasoned professional, give you that advice and
Yeah.
help you. But the other thing was just getting to know people and building that infrastructure that you're going to need to help you in your career going forward. Um, I
Yeah.
I also looked at what makes people not want to network. Why does the younger generation not want to do the in-person networking? And I get it. It talked
Yeah.
about because they grew up in a digital age, and so they don't like that face-to-face interactive conversation. But I thought of it from this perspective too. Who are mostly our directors and our executives that are going to be looking for new hires? Most of them are
Right.
Gen X folks. I mean, and
Yeah.
boomers that we do like that interaction. So I think it's important to remember, yes, the younger generation needs to network face to face, but also the older ones of us need to remember too, that's not their typical way to communicate.
Yeah.
And so I think we all have to do a little give here and meet in the middle. It
Yeah.
can't all be virtual and it can't all be face to face. I think we're going to have to marry the two. And a
Yeah.
lot of associations are doing that. They are having virtual conferences
Mhm.
and having in person events. So I do think it's a good balance we can find to do that.
I agree. I do have some struggles with that though. Just with having, that split where some are online and some are in person,
Right.
it decreases that pool on both sides. But then at the same time, and this is for all, our Gen Z, emerging professionals of any generation, but really that face to face, we discount it and they don't like it. But I'm going to say something kind of spicy, I guess, but
Uh oh.
they're losing those soft skills. So they don't
Yes.
interview well. They don't talk face to face well. They don't look you in the eye. They don't seem
No.
confident. And when you're hiring, that's one of the things that you need. You need confidence. How many times, and we've said this multiple times, but Lorie, how many times have you had to stand up to a doctor who is
Yeah.
annoyed and frustrated? And if you are not someone who's able to go face to face and talk to somebody about a potential
Yep.
job opportunity, do you think they're going to be able to hold their ground when they're like, nope, sorry, sir, this didn't work. This
Right.
doesn't
Right.
work like that. You didn't document it. It's so important that they get those soft skills. And I want them to have those soft skills. So I think those face-to-face things are really important, even if you only go to one. I think it's
Right,
just so
right.
important.
Yeah, we were talking about an investment earlier before the show started. You were talking about the return on investment, and I'll let you talk about that. But just the things you learn at a conference, going to the
Yeah.
educational sessions and being in a room where you can ask questions. And sometimes I know audiences don't ask questions and it makes it difficult for the speaker. It really does, because I
It
like to
does.
get my audience engaged. But when you're in a room and somebody asks a question, and it may be a question you were already thinking about, it
Mhm.
gives you the courage to ask questions
Mhm.
yourself and not be
Yeah.
afraid to ask questions. And I think that's very important. And like you said, you were talking about soft skills. How do we interact? I have customer service. We are in healthcare, everybody is a customer.
Yes.
Providers, physicians are HIM customers.
Yeah.
Patient accounts are HIM customers. Patients are HIM customers. We have these customers that we need to be able to interact with. I mean, I have
Mhm.
in the past had people come in to get their records and be very upset and not understand why they can't have their 18-year-old child's records.
Yeah.
Or, you have someone that comes in, is a death or a hard illness or something, and they're trying to get records and they're very frustrated and they just don't know what to do. And so being
Mhm.
able to communicate and connect with that person
Mhm.
on the human level is very important.
Yeah.
I had a risk manager. She used to always say, people will always remember how you made them feel,
Yeah.
but they may not remember what you did for them.
Yeah.
And that's true. So when we're having those conversations, we need to have that human element to it. In our world, especially in compliance, risk management, and things like that, lawsuits can be avoided by having that human interaction and
Yes.
conversation. And
Yeah.
networking teaches you to build that. So it
Oh,
will help
yeah.
you later on. Yes. So
Yeah.
you tell me about the ROI. You were talking a little
Okay.
earlier about it.
So I found some really interesting and almost like so in your face logical, but not things that we would necessarily put into words. Because what we hear oftentimes is, oh, go to conferences because you're going to get your CEUs. Oh, go to conferences because you're going
Right.
to network. And those are all great things. But the result of those is what I was looking for. Like, okay, we can say that all day long, but really, how many people get jobs, or what is the return on investment? And the one thing that I was talking about to you was really the return on investment on face-to-face networking and what that looks like. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I started researching it, it brought up a study done by Glue Up, which I'd never heard of before. However,
Nope.
what they found was that for every dollar we spend to go to a conference, so I'll break it down in just a minute, but for every dollar we spend to go to a conference, we are getting $12.50 back in networking, in how we move forward and progress in our career. And so I broke it out like this. If I spent $1,500 on conference registration, I blew everything out of proportion a little bit, because there
Yeah.
is no HIM conference that we spend $1,500 on.
No.
But let's just use my numbers, because really what I wanted to get to was about $1,000 to attend a conference. So $800 in hotel and travel, meals, incidentals, let's just say $700, depending on what you were doing and what was happening. Maybe you're also putting money into a fund, a student fund. So all of that included, it's about $3,000 that
Mm-hmm.
you decided to spend to go to a conference, or someone sent you to a conference.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The return on investment, so whether it's equivalent in business or career advancement, was $37,500 that you would get from that $3,000 investment that you spent to go to the conference.
Wow.
You would get $37,500 equivalent business or career advancement. That number should shock everyone and get everyone going and wanting to go to
Yeah.
conferences,
That is
because
amazing.
that's huge. That is huge. So I then broke it down and I was like, okay, so what kind of like business or career advancement type things are we looking at? When I thought about us as consultants, one client could be a
Mm-hmm.
return on investment of that easily, right? We are a
Right.
vendor. What retaining a client or adding business with a client could be that.
Mm-hmm.
Promotions on the business side, you go and you start learning and you're networking. One job promotion could equivalent to that. If you are, working with one company and then you get recruited at another conference to go work for somebody else, you could get a huge pay raise depending on where you were going or what you were doing. Speaking engagements. And we've talked about speaking engagements some, but speaking engagements are huge. Not only do they showcase your knowledge, but they get your name out there. And
Oh
whether that's
yeah.
as a vendor or as a professional just in the industry, you're getting your name out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of that just led into it's strategic. You are strategically placing yourself to sell yourself or your business
Oh yeah.
to the
So
people that want it.
yeah, and nobody is going to promote you like you're going to promote you. I mean, they're just
Exactly.
not.
Yes.
So talking about speaking, yeah, people are scared to speak a lot of times, nervous.
Mhm.
I never had a problem speaking, but I think back on when I did my very first speaking engagement at a state HIM show. It was, I won't say it was awful, but it was nowhere near what my speaking engagements are like now. Let's just say that I have grown over the years.
Don't we all?
So yeah. So, but getting out there, but that has lended me the opportunity not only to speak at HIM
Mhm.
organizations, but I've spoke at several
Yeah,
HFMA associations
same.
and gotten some great trips out of it. So we were talking about, vendors getting you to speak for them. I've had vendors, I've gone
Yeah.
to Florida, I've been to
Mhm.
South Carolina, Texas, different places, because vendors have wanted me to go and speak
Yeah.
on their behalf. And so there's always opportunity out there. You just have
Yeah.
to be looking for it. And I want to talk about another thing because we're talking about conferences. And that's
Mhm.
great because when we think about conference, we think about the classroom setting. We're at this conference,
Yeah.
but you really should network after the conferences at the events they have later.
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll have like president's reception
Yes.
at our state shows, or a honorary get together, and people don't go. There are very few people that go to those, and they don't realize that, yeah, you're having fun, but you're also networking and building those relationships.
Exactly.
I have some great relationships because we've built them over the years. So
Yeah.
THIMA, yes, I met all of those guys and ladies at a NAHIMA House of Delegates meeting. And
Mhm.
we've all gone out, gone, to eat together, or gone out and go dancing. I mean, even
Yeah.
dancing, but you build those relationships with these people. And so those are some of my dearest friends now.
Yeah.
And that's over 20 years ago that I met them. And so, like I said, it's not just the classroom setting.
No.
You need to be involved in other get-togethers and things that are going on. And it could be as simple as just going down to the lounge at your hotel and sitting around
Mhm.
having conversations with people that you don't normally have
Yes.
conversations with.
Yeah.
We laugh about the business being done on the golf course. I've laughed and said, I have got to learn to play golf because apparently lots of business is done on the golf course.
Right?
Um, so, so we think about how do I network? Well, it's not
Yeah.
just conferences. There's lots of other things you can participate in. Volunteering is a great way to network.
Yes. Yes.
So
You bring
that's
up
how
a
I
good
got.
point though, Lori. And that
What's
was
that?
another part of my research was, okay, so if you're going, but you're just staying in your room and you're just going to the meetings to learn and
Right.
then you go back to your room really quick or you get takeout or whatever, are you really, are you really doing the whole conference thing? And you're
Right.
not.
You're
Because that
not.
is where the deals are made are at those meetings or those tables where you meet up and you say, hey, who wants to go dancing or who wants to go,
Hmm.
we're going to get ice cream or we're going to hang out in the lobby, come down or
Yeah.
whatever. 85% of those hidden opportunities, and that is a statistic that I found, 85% of those hidden opportunities are presented to you before they even become available. So
Right.
you can touch on those. And for an emerging professional or someone looking for a new job or looking to get a job, that then opens up, and they're finding that within 1 to 3 months, students or emerging professionals can land a job with going and participating, actively participating in all components of a association meeting. So within 1 to 3 months, you could land a job, and there's 85% of the opportunities that are open to you if you just go and you actively seek out and get to know and work your way into conversations with good soft skills, not aggressively, but with good soft skills. You work your way into those conversations, and then you get so many benefits like that. It was shocking to me to find that out and to see those numbers, because 85% is a huge number to have access to before it even goes public. You know,
and a lot of people, they may think, well, who do I network with? Who should I target? And I guess target's a bad word, but who should I kind of make a point to go talk to? Board members, people that have volunteered for the board or that are sitting on the board. A lot of times those people have larger networks because to get where they're at, they've had to do that. So, if you can participate, volunteer to help hand out door prizes. I've had, students, not only students, but new professionals do that. Hey, can I help give out door prizes? Things like that. And you get your face known. And so people feel like they know you because they see you around. And it really does help. And especially if they see you demonstrate your abilities. Say maybe you're helping show someone else around, and somebody is paying attention to things like that. We need to remember that people see a lot more, but they may not say quite as much. So be looking for those individuals that are just kind of scanning the crowd and watching, and they're usually taking it all in to see, okay, who's going to be my next HIM star? Who's going to be my next volunteer? So yes, make sure you're doing that.
Yeah. Okay, we've talked a lot about emerging professionals and why networking and things like that, but I think there's also something to be said for, and I'm going to use the word seasoned, even though I don't feel seasoned, and I'm not sure if you feel seasoned at all. Okay,
girl,
you're seasoned.
I'm salt, pepper, garlic. I am seasoned, I promise.
Okay, so you're seasoned. I don't feel seasoned, but compared to an emerging professional, 15, 16 years of going to conferences, that's more seasoned. I'm simmering, I guess. But what I would say is that what draws those in? Why would they keep coming back? Aside from the social component, they're learning, they know the benefits, but why do they keep coming back? Or what is what's their thing that, COVID did a hit to all conferences.
It was terrible. Terrible.
And there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't need to go. Oh, I'm not going to go. And so why would they keep coming back, or why would they start to come back again? I want your thoughts on that.
So my thoughts on that is, one, it's the friendships that you build, because let's face it, we're all very busy professionals, and you meet people when you go to a state conference, you meet people all over your state, and you're not necessarily going to always get to see those people in person, but a lot of times the state HIM show, you see those people. I have friends that I see them once a year, and it is at the state HIM show. We're friends, and we've been friends for 15, 20 years, but it's because we spend that time together at our state HIM show. I think that's really important. And you were talking about COVID, what it did to associations. I think that state shows that offer simultaneous webinars at the same time, have a live show webinar feed as they're doing this face-to-face, I think that hurts them more than they realize, because a lot of times if you don't offer that option, people will come. They've started coming back in person. I'm not to say that you can't offer it later as education, on-demand education, but I think having it at the same time is hurtful to our associations.
Yeah.
Another reason people keep coming back is like the job prospect, the job
Mm-hmm.
opportunities. If you're looking for a job or you think you want to change jobs, look at what's open in your state and see what
Mm-hmm.
facilities it is, and do some research, find out who the HIM director is there.
Yeah.
Who the revenue cycle director that may be there, who are some of the coders there. You can find that information out because we're a very small network. It's
Right.
a lot of people, but it's a kind of a small network when you start meeting everybody. You know, if you want a new job, go for it. And
Mm-hmm.
networking is a great way to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think that we lose a lot when we stop networking and stop growing as a professional.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I also think, and I think it's discounted a lot. Some of us get in and we're working and we're, actively doing our thing, and we forget that, yeah, a higher salary would be nice.
Oh yeah,
And we think, oh well, we'll just put in a little bit more effort here at work, or we're going to go look for a new job, and maybe that's why you're coming back. But I do want to emphasize that I have seen, but also through again my research, found that in 3 to 5 years, a professional, even a seasoned professional who starts going to conferences, their salary increases by 5 to 10%.
hmm
And that is across the board. But healthcare is number 3 on that list of the
hmm
most impacted by going to conferences. That to me was shocking. I mean, I think a ton of people are like out there going, "Oh, an extra $10,000 if you make 100,000 and you get a increase of 10%, that's $10,000. That'd be kind of nice. We could take a
yeah,
really nice vacation, or we could go do something like that, that we wouldn't normally be able to do with that increase." And it's because you're going to these things, but also the proof of going and saying, "Oh, this is how I've helped your company." So when
right.
bonuses or raise time and raise season does come up, you're able to defend a higher salary. And 5 to 10% was the average. So
hmm
you could see a huge jump in that just by actively being involved, or helping your facility or your organization kind of stay ahead of the trend
hmm
because you're volunteering or you're networking with your community and knowing what's happening. So I think that's, for me at least, as somebody who has been going, that would be my biggest reason to keep going is, oh well, look, I'm able to be ahead of the curve. I'm able to know all of these things
hmm
from going, and then I get all of these other benefits as well.
Right. Yeah. So that is one reason. One of my old CEOs would pay for me to go to conferences because he knew I was always going to bring something back, and that
Yeah.
was helpful to our facility. And so the key is when you learn this information, you need to make sure you demonstrate that at work,
Yeah.
that people know I got this because I networked. I was able to get
Right.
this information and help my facility because of this. I think we do a poor job of promoting why it's important that we go get our continuing education and what we can learn.
Oh,
Uh,
agreed.
yeah, and I think one thing too we forget as seasoned people, we do forget how nervous it was for us to come, or how
Yeah.
much anxiety it caused for us to come as a new student or as a new professional. So we need to make sure that we're, as seasoned people, reaching out to the new faces that we're seeing,
Mhm.
and bringing them in and talking to them. I know there are some vendors, they don't want to talk to students because there's absolutely no financial gain in talking to that student. But
Yeah.
there is a gain of you're growing that student up. They're going to be a professional, and they're going to be
Yeah.
running things one day when all of us seasoned folks are gone. They will be running
Yeah.
things. So if you meet them as a student and you help grow them as a professional, when they do get in those positions, they're going to remember you. I have vendors that helped me get where I'm at,
Yeah.
and I remember them and I use them a lot of times.
Yeah.
You just develop these relationships that are not out there any other way other than face to face interaction, and you get to have conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes for educators as well, you know. Yeah, they are well involved with their students. They know the students that you're going to want to talk to if you're a
Hmm.
vendor or
Yes.
if you are already, out and working and you're looking for somebody. Talk to those educators because they
Hmm.
have
They know.
great knowledge of the students that they have. They do. And so I think that's another benefit to any vendor group that shies away from talking to anyone in education. Because, like you said, there's no dollar signs there,
Hmm.
but the dollar signs are in the long term. So you're planting
Long
seeds
term.
long term, not
Yes.
just
Yes.
you know,
So I have
for
to
the
tell
next
you something
months or
that you
year.
don't know. Um, so everyone, we
Tell
just
me.
hired Vicky Humphreys. We hired Vicky Humphreys to come into our to
She's
Primo. She is
amazing.
our HR director. She is fantastic. So Vicky, the college she went to, they came to our facility and we did a talk for them, a student talk. And so I remembered her from that talk. And then she graduated, and so when I reached out to that HIM instructor, and I was like, "Hey, I need to know, do you have some new grads that, would be interested in coding?" She advised me, "Oh, Vicky is great. You will love her. She's great. She's a go-getter." So that's how I got her, is that I remembered her from when the students came and I spoke to her. Then I reached out to her instructor, and her instructor highly recommended her, and we hired her, and she coded for me for years. And then now here she is with us at Primo. That is networking face to face, because I
Yeah.
remembered her from that talk. And I think
Mhm.
people forget that your first impressions are important too. I've seen
Yeah.
sometimes I just cringe because of the first impression you get of someone, like coming to interview, or that it's like
Yes.
you have your pajamas on and you're here to
Mhm.
fill out a job application. That's not a good first impression, and it's hard to change those first impressions. But I do
Mhm.
think that, like you were talking earlier, the soft skills, I think that
Yeah.
you learn some of that too from watching others, not necessarily talking to them,
Oh,
but
agreed.
watching them. um
Yeah.
I When I was first out of school, I was a hothead. I was a handful. I just said whatever. I didn't, and I still don't really have a
No.
filter, but I was way more brutal in my younger days. But I learned from watching HIM directors and leadership.
Mhm.
I learned how to conduct myself better. Um,
Yeah.
I don't fly off the handle as much. I don't just say whatever I think. There are times I know people think that, yes, she does. She says whatever. I really don't, because there are times that I do filter and I do rewrite what I'm about to say, because I don't want to offend anybody. I know that's shocking
Yeah.
to people, but I do that. But yes, but just watching and learning from other
Yeah.
people can help you grow in your
Mhm.
career.
Yeah, being in that environment teaches you so many things that you will never learn on
Hmm.
a webinar ever. I mean,
Never.
you'll learn to keep your camera off and keep your, camera or your microphone muted. You'll learn those types of things. You'll learn how to speak the language, but you
Right.
could get out there and speak the language, and like you said, somebody shows up in jammies or with slippers on, that's a hard no for me. Um,
Right.
I, I've done two interviews where someone showed up with their mom. Their mom tried to interview as well.
Wow.
Yeah, disturbing. Things like that, though, those are, I mean, that to the extreme, but those are soft skills that we've got to
Right.
learn so that someone can see the value that you add. And it is selling yourself and,
Yes.
you know, being good at
Oh, I
being
get
able to
it.
talk.
And talking about conferences and soft skills and dressing and things like that. So back when I first started out, it was like heels, hose, dress.
Yeah.
It was, you were very professional
Yes.
looking, and I have backed off of that some. I do still dress
Mhm.
a lot of times, but you will see things a little more casual now at
Mhm.
conferences. And then I have been to some conferences. I look at people and I'm like, did you not brush your hair when you got out of bed this morning? I
Yeah.
mean, so,
Did you not even try?
um, yeah, did you not try? So yeah, even though
Yeah.
it is a really good place to network, your outward appearance does
Mhm.
impact the impression that people have about you.
Yep.
So just remember that, if you younger ones that are coming up networking, that yes, we do still pay attention to that. I know the
Yeah.
younger group probably does not, but the older group does.
Yeah.
So just be mindful of that you are making a first impression on a lot of people
Mhm.
when you're out, especially like you said, in person meetings. You
Yeah.
can't hide it.
Yep. Well, this has been a fun one, Lori. Thank
It
you.
has. It has. I do have to tell a really quick little story, real quick, though. So I used to always wonder. A lot of people know Bob Stewart from DocuVoice. He was there forever,
Yeah.
and Bob is amazing. And usually by June, so conference season kind of wraps up about July. So when Bob would come to Mississippi in June, he would, you could tell he was maybe a little tired, but he's been to like 20 something conferences since
Yeah.
March. And they would always take everybody out and go out and stay out late. And I've actually had breakfast at IHOP many a morning with them at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And so just remember your vendors, that especially us seasoned vendors. By the time June gets here, we're usually starting to get kind of tired. But if you have a vendor that goes out with you and helps you have a good time, you need to remember them, because they are putting a lot of work into making sure that you're having a good time, and your conference is going to be a great conference.
Boy, is
So I
that
just had to
true.
tell that. I just had to tell that story because,
Yeah. I agree. I agree. All
yeah.
right, Lori. Well, it was been really great to learn your perspective on that.
All right, Kristen. Thanks so much for all the research. Kristen's a researcher. I'm not so much a researcher, but anyway,
It's what balances it out.
it's. I know it's been great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye,
All
guys.
right. See ya.